heck is that big old hunk of dog? I mean, I think that's our next project. Hesston 6450 windrower. First off, let's wash this thing off. Get all this crap out from underneath here, here. So let's make it so I can take a look at it and see what's going on. With a little bit of fancy driving, you can swing that header in the shop doors. Oh, this is a Hesston 6450 Swather, windrower, whatever you want to call it. We got some work to do on it. I need to get that all welded back up. Maybe put some self-tapper screws in it. That's the way the other side is. And that'd give it a little bit of flex before it just snaps off. I've got some new belts around here, but they are for the other side. The old hose clamp jobby here's been holding up, but they want something a little bit different there, so that doesn't wear out. What else do I got to do? I don't think it charges. It pukes water all over you when you're driving because it's got a swamp cooler up there that something is not happy about. Trying to remember. Oil change. Fuel filter looks like is leaking here since I drove it in, so that needs to be fixed. I don't think it charges, but I can see wires disconnected here, so maybe that's what's going on with that. Just a lot of odds and ends, but we're gonna get after it here, and I'll bring you guys along on the way. So the flywheel's off. It had a roll pin in there that was all broke off. End of that's off, or been welded up or something. Here's a piece of the roll pin. I think that this was supposed to have one of those collars that quarter turned, kind of locked itself onto the end, and that's what kept that pitman arm on, or whatever it is. But I don't know for sure, and I'm not exactly sure what I should put in there to replace it. Thought about maybe welding this up, drilling a hole in the center, putting a big bolt in the center. But I should probably figure out which way this thing rotates, so then I know if it's gonna tighten it or if it's gonna loosen it, you know, and then I'd have to buy a left-handed tap. If I needed to do a left-hand one, then you'd have to look for left-handed bolts if it ever fell out. So I'm not real sure what I should do. I'm gonna leave this on the bench for a little bit, think about it, and move on to the next thing. So here's what I got figured out. I am going to true this up a little bit flatter. I'm gonna drill a hole right in the center. I'm gonna drill it so I can weld some sort of nut right on the end of this, and the bolt will have a little bit room to go right down to where this hole is. Have that all welded up, and I can thread a nut down onto, or a bolt down onto here, and push on a sleeve to hold this all tight. But I need to get it cleaned up here, get it drilled out, and I'll bring you guys back. All right, guys, we're preheated. Got some 7018 rod. I'm gonna try to get some weld on this and see how it goes. This is cast steel, so no guarantees. Running plenty hot. About all I can turn down the shop welder though. Little 332 rod. Get all the right tools around here. Hear that welder doesn't like running at this low amperage. A lot closer to where I want to be though. Running nice. Oh yeah. Cool. That's not looking too bad. Still have that hole right there and a great big arc mark. That wouldn't have flew in the pipeline world, but I might fill that hole in, and then I need to get that bolt backed out of there before everything cools down, because it'll never come out of there if you leave it in there like that. So it turned out all right. I welded that hole up. I'll have to grind some of that down So my pitman arm will fit back over there. Just kind of clean it up. But welded pretty nice, so hopefully it stays put and this will hold that on there. I think that cleaned up fairly nice. I think it'll do something, so we'll put that back on there and give it a try. Oh, it's been a few days since I've been down in the shop. And there's still just a crap load of things to do around here. But that's all right. Keeps me from getting into trouble. I got my nut welded on here the other day, and I do not see any cracks, which makes me feel better. I do see that hole where that roll pin went through. I didn't get that covered, and I see a big ass arc mark on this side. That wouldn't fly on the old pipeline, but it'll probably hold for quite a while. So I cut this on the lathe. It's right at 11/16 long. I need to clean the burrs out of it, but that's going to go down onto there. I need to cut some sort of washer for the top, and then I will thread a bolt down in there. That will clamp down on this internal bearing race so that it spins the bearing instead of spinning the race on the shaft like it has been doing and wearing it down. But we need to get that stuff cleaned up, figure out a washer, and that will get us going here. We're gonna make our own washer here. I've got a hole saw that's just a little bit bigger than this. We'll cut out a hole in this plate, and then I'll drill the hole in the center to a 1/2-inch bolt, and we'll have a 1/4-inch thick washer here. Nice part about the Bridgeport is it's got power feed down, so we can make a pretty nice cut without tearing a bunch of stuff up. It's just pushing the pilot bit through right now. Just starting to make the cut. I've used a hole saw on this machine a lot. I used to saddle pipe to build gates on here. It seems kind of ridiculous, but works good. So I almost got it cut all the way through, but instead of trying to hold on to that when I'm done, I decided let's move over to the drill press right here next door, drill that center hole out. Since that hole saw is fairly established in that plate, it won't walk around now, and then I won't have to worry about holding on to that when I'm done. Now we'll just finish hole sawing that thing out. Put that big hole in there, it ain't gonna matter. There it is. All cleaned up, kind of had a burr on the bottom side. Run it on the bench grinder, fits on there pretty darn good. That'll work. Okay, there it is all back together. I actually had to cut another one of these bushings because I had this on upside down and these bolts were hitting the flywheel and I didn't realize it. But as you can see, that bushing sleeve pushes against the inside race on that bearing, so it stays put, bearing turns just like it should. I think that's gonna work good. I will Loctite this in when I assemble it. Hopefully they shouldn't have any problems. So I had it all together. That tightened up nicely. Just misses that bar, about 1/8 of an inch of clearance. That's without the lock washer. But I Loctited it, so hopefully it stays put. Something else we could do is we could put a tack on it, but that would only let the whole thing spin together, so it's not gonna help a whole lot. But I got it all together and I started running it by hand. There's a bunch of slop right here. So I tore into this. It's got a tapered bearing on both sides. I cleaned them up. They looked fine. But what I did notice was all the threads are blown out of this nut. So it wasn't tightening it up on this shaft. Luckily this shaft's good. So I went down and got me a lock nut. a castle nut, and some shim washers for a 7/8 shaft, because I noticed there was some shim washers under the back side of that. And why that is there's actually 3 different holes to put a cotter pin through, but you need to set the preload on those 2 taper bearings right here. You know, they're meant to be pushing against each other. So we need to do that. We get all this tightened up, because before, when I was running it over by hand, it was this guy here was moving tunk tunk back and forth inside there. So that would have just hammered those bearings out of there. But if we can get it tightened up where it's supposed to be, then instead of it moving back and forth here, it has to move back and forth down here on the knife. Okay, I've got this nice and solid again. The only play in it is down here. See if you guys can see that. And that's in that ball joint that pushes the tie rod. Holy shit. You can tell I work on a lot of vehicles. Pushes the sickle back and forth. But I think we put a little grease in there, that one would be fine. So let's hook this back up. Maybe we'll roll it over by hand, see how that looks. Got greasy fingerprints all over it now. Okay. Everything seems like it's working. Doesn't have a bunch of play in it. Whenever I move the flywheel, everything else moves with it. That was a pretty easy fix. I'm gonna grease it, but I might wait till I'm all the way done, because who knows what else I need to fix. So I'm gonna put this belt back on. It does some goofy loop up and around and back down. That won't be too big a deal. I just pried it off there with the screwdriver, stuck one in here and rotated it around, and it flew off. I'm not real sure. Oh, I guess the tension's over here. I see that now. I could have loosened that and got the tension off, but I need to put it back on. But something else I see is if you look down here, see how that chain's been rubbing on that guard? I think I'll pull that guard out of there and try to get that fixed up a little bit nicer. But the main reason is this chain here has got way too much slop in it. You know, you can touch these together. So I need to loosen that. Looks like this nut here, and then I can set the tension for that chain right there on this chain tensioner. So that'll be one of the next things. The more you look, the more you find. So the belt's back on there. That was easy, just rotate it around, pop it back on. I'm gonna hang on this for a second, because what I would like to do is fire it up, lift the header up in the air, because I need to inspect the guards and the sickle. And while it's running, I want to come back here and I want to do a voltage test the battery, because my brother and dad didn't think that the alternator's working. So I would like to test it here. This wire here is not hooked up in this black tape kind of cluster. So I would like to hook it up, see if I'm getting anything out of this guy. Maybe I will pull this off and take it to Napa and have them test it. But I want to do a little bit of testing on my own before I pull it off there. So I need to pull that apart, test voltage at the battery. But like I said, let's fire it up and do those things. Not running. I've got 12.7 at the battery. It's been on charger for a couple days, so that should be right. Looks like nothing out of the alternator, which doesn't surprise me. Let's roll this header over a little bit. We'll take a look at everything. Bring you guys back here where the wobble box is. You can watch it close for me. Well, what'd you guys think? I think it looks pretty good now. Got a lot of slop out of all that stuff. So that makes me happy. Like I said, we're still gonna grease all of these points. But we're gonna wait till we're done working on this thing because I don't want to coat it with grease and then coat myself in grease after I worked on it. So this cable sticking out down here, my brother tells me is supposed to go up in here over a bolt. I think you can kind of see it. Maybe see it down in there. That holds tension on the conditioner, so it actually will crimp the hay. I would like to get it strung back up over there. It's too bad that the cable's in such poor shape. We might be able to, we can kind of wind it back around itself here. I don't know how long it will last like that. I should look, see where the other end goes, and maybe I can get a new cable for it. But now I think I need to take this alternator off. And something ain't happy and right with it. So it needs to come off of there. I think that there's maybe a voltage regulator down in here. I'm not real sure what that is. I kind of thought that this was the voltage regulator, but you guys, if you could see correctly, I was touching these wire connections together when I was trying it, and it wasn't making any difference. We might hook that up more permanent with a butt connector quick. Well, maybe a spade connector, because it looks like we're gonna have to unhook that from the alternator. We might try that before we get too carried away here, just to make sure that isn't the problem. Starter did not sound very happy, but it was winging it over, I guess. New fuel filter, new air filter. I like the clear ones so I can see what's going on instead of the steel ones that are not. Got the alternator ripped off of here. The battery tore out. We'll get the alternator tested, nap it tomorrow. Just kind of rolling along here, checking out the guards. My dad was asking me what I thought of them, and there's a few of them that are pretty tight and not bad. Like that ain't a bad guard right there. But the other side of it's fairly worn. And then like this end one, that's done. That's just gonna cause headaches. This knife will get dull like it is now. And it'll just fold hay over inside of there and knot up. But I'm gonna talk to him about it. I think the best route for as much hay as they're planning on putting up is we'll throw a whole new set of guards on it. We can reuse some of these hold down things. But we'll get a new set of guards on there. Make sure everything's nice, and I think it'll be a lot better outcome for him. Somewhere along here, yeah, pretty bent up right there. That knife is bent. cutting into that guard. I think it's just time. I think they'll have a lot better luck, and they'll probably wear out that set this year, as much hay as they're planning on putting up. So talk to him about that. That's kind of interesting. This guy here hits that. Bet you can hear that when it goes around. I'm guessing that this is to direct hay around that, but I'm also guessing, ooh, it's supposed to be kind of bent out away from it. That's probably better. Back out here on the Swather. Got the cab jacked up with the hydraulic jack. Gonna try to sneak some new mounts in here. 2 fronts, 2 rears. The rears are a little bit smaller, but I'm hoping I can get it all jacked up to the point and get them slid in here. Maybe end up moving the jack over here in the middle. I've got to change these belts too, somewhere here. Well, you can see they're kind of doing the old loop-de-loop around here, but I think this cab has almost been rubbing on them or something. They're not in good shape, but that'll be pulling this all apart so I can get the belts off the end here. Not that big a deal, but let's do some cab mounts first. That went really good. Just jacked it up back here and then here. If I was to do it all over again, I would have just done them both in the same crack. Put the jack right here in the middle, but I just need to put the center bolts back down through here and then go to the other side. Got nice space along here now, so that ain't gonna rub anymore. Should be good to go. So the driver's side has been a little more difficult. You'd think you could just pop this shield off and then get to both of them, but there was 2 bolts here holding the top, another bolt down here, another bolt somewhere. Oh, these ones down through here. But now there's bolts holding the top here that I can't get to. I can't get this cover to come off. I took all the bolts out of it that I could see, and it won't move. So I'm wondering if I don't want to sneak in and do the rear one from the inside, and then maybe drop the header down, take this plate cover out, and then sneak in from the back side on this one too. And then I won't have to mess with any more of the cover. I can just leave it alone. But I need the battery back in to drop the header down because it won't fall without it running. I don't have an alternator on, so I'm kind of tube locked. I could probably start it with no alternator, but I'll need to put the battery back in. But I gotta figure out what I'm gonna do there. All right, guys, I'm sorry that this isn't gonna get done in this video, but that's the way it goes sometimes. So we need to do quite a bit more work to the old Swather, and I just don't have enough time. But so on the next video, we'll plan on getting these belts changed out here. We will change out the sickles on the front. Not the sickle. Well, we'll change the sickles too, but we're going to change all the guards along here. Do this belt on this side. You know, there's plenty left to do, but I appreciate you guys watching, and we'll see you on the next one.